There it is. Episode 28. We're back again.
28. Does that mean we're getting close to
30? I guess.
Unbelievable.
Numerically carry the one.
Yeah.
Yep. Close
Yeah.
to 30.
Awesome.
I'm Adam still.
I am Steve.
There it is. So Steve, so some of you may notice the last couple podcasts that we've done have been the pillars of the business. You know, we started with energy, then did communications, then relationships.
Yes.
That leaves one left.
Yeah.
Commitment.
Right.
Exactly. And so this last podcast, we talked about relationships, and we kind of teased or alluded to, you know, you might be getting a relationships part 2 because there's so much to unpack there, or you might get commitment.
Right.
Today, we opted to go
Part 2.
Part 2 of relationships. Yep.
Yeah.
We got a lot of really great feedback on the part 1 of relationships. So we wanted to give you guys part 2. So here we are today.
Yeah. One of the things that, everybody knows about business is find out what the customer wants and give it to them.
Exactly.
And so the last couple podcasts, the numbers are going up, best numbers that we've ever had, and they're growing. And so that's great. It feels good and everything, but we want to continue to build off of those topics. So where do you want to kick this thing off?
Yeah, I think towards the end of the last one, if you haven't watched it, go back, watch Relationships Part 1. It's about 17 minutes. I think that podcast is. You'll really enjoy it, and that'll kind of tee it up for this one where, we dive into a couple topics a little bit deeper. So I think towards the end of the last one, we just barely scratched the surface and, again, teased about one of the most important relationships in business and life, everything combined, is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
And so I think that would be a good spot to kick it off here and, kind of see where things go. But why don't you start by talking about that?
At the end of that podcast, we talked about the fact that, we let ourselves down more than anybody else. We break our own commitments more than anybody else. And, and that can affect our confidence, our ability to, connect with other people. And so some people don't take the time. They don't make the effort because they don't honestly have the awareness that taking good care of that relationship that we have with ourselves is probably the most important investment, that you can make. When I got out of college, for example, there was Brian Tracy. Brian's still around, but at that point he said, take 10% of your pre-tax, pre-expense, pre-savings income and invest it in yourself. And so at that time in my life, I wasn't making that much money. So to figure out how to spend 10% of my gross income on investing in myself wasn't that big of a deal. As things have evolved, figuring out how to invest that 10% into myself, it's more challenging because there's honestly, frankly, more resources available to do that. And it is one of the best investments that you can make is in yourself. You're going to say?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that comes to mind as you're saying that is oftentimes we get too in our heads about things like with ourselves. We start blaming ourselves, or if a relationship is kind of, funky, well, what did I do? Or how am I reading that? Did I come across? Chances are how you're thinking about yourself is not what they're thinking about you.
Exactly. At some point in my life, I heard that, mental health is all about the gap between how we see ourselves and how the outside world sees us. And as we grow and evolve and get mature and more wise, we close that gap as it relates to how we see ourselves and how others see us. And that has something to do with the relationship that we have with ourselves. A lot of times in business, you and I talk to people about the relationships that people have with their employees, the relationships that a company has with their customers, and how, linked that is. And it's very difficult for a leader to engage employees if that confidence, that wisdom, and that strength that they have individually is not strong. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think all too often we put ourselves last in that, right? Oh, I can get this project done. I don't need that much sleep, or I'll work out tomorrow, or I'll just grab something, quick for lunch instead of something maybe nutritious or something, or, we beat ourselves up over small interactions during the workday, or, how you came across in a meeting or in an email or something like that. And we're just, a lot of times we're too hard on ourselves that we need to give ourselves more grace. We need to give ourselves more space, make sure we're right. Because if you're not right, how do you expect to make other people right and help other people and do your job and harness those relationships? Because, one thing that we're going to probably segue into here is talking about the relationships in business with employees, customers, things that you were just talking about.
Right. Well, and I think, taking care of the nutrition, the rest, and all that other stuff, that's a very, very relevant point. And it makes me think about the way that I know that I talk to myself sometimes. I would never speak to anybody else
Yeah.
the way that I speak to myself.
Yeah. Are you guilty of that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so, over the years, I think that conversation with myself has gotten more fair and kind
Yep.
and,
Yep.
and understanding. And then I think that the people close to me would say the same thing has happened in my communication with them.
With them, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it started with that, that relationship
Yeah.
with myself and being more kind, because there is that conversation in our head.
Yeah.
And it drives everything.
Exactly. And so I think that, so some of you may know, I feel like I'm going all over the place here, but I feel like some of you know one of the biggest mottos in our business is that at the heart of every business is relationships.
Yeah.
And that's very intentional.
Right.
I think everything stems from relationships, right? To have good relationships, that means you need to have some of those other pillars. You need to have good communication.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that communication piece, communication is the oxygen that fuels healthy relationships.
Yep.
That is the oxygen. And if you don't have, quality communication, the relationship isn't getting air.
Yeah.
If you don't have frequent communication, you're starving that relationship of oxygen. Yeah.
I think some people might be listening, if you're a leader, business owner, C-suite, even if you're just a regular employee, you might be like, come on, Adam and Steve, it's a little cheesy, relationships are the heart of every business, but
tell them I'll see them out in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Ding, ding, cue the boxing bell. If you really think about, some people might be like, oh no, it's KPIs and, profit, revenue. It might be, you're catering to your customer demographic, your leadership roles, the structure, the operations. Like there's other things that are the heart of the business, but it's relationships, because if you don't have good, like the first customer of the business is its employees.
Yes.
If you don't have good relationships internally, leaders to employees,
Right.
to employees alike,
Right.
how can you have good, those are going to be your first cheerleaders and first line of defense. They're going to feel good about working there. They're going to want to, dive into that customer experience. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and now you're throwing out the buzzwords.
Well,
The customer experience, it's I don't know if we can still call it an evolving function or focus, but this whole idea of customer experience, and, maybe I believe this more passionately than you do, I'm not sure, but I think the fact that customer experience has become such an issue is the fact that customer service has been weak. I mean, people haven't been focusing on that relationship with the customer. Well, why does that happen? My bias is that the organizations, the leaders, the owners haven't been focused on employees. Fact of the matter is, you take care of the employees will take care of the customer. That's the way that
yeah,
that
there's
link goes.
a lot of truth to that.
Right.
Some people could argue, the actual physical function of CX is, all these different bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
A great working website and a
Right.
good product, and
Right.
Healthy customer service, call center, and things like that. But at the end of the day, again, you have some of those things because of the relationships, and you wouldn't have some of those things if you didn't have good relationships. If all of those other functions like customer service or product or shipping or, whatever, if they were doing their job to a T, the best they possibly could, and loved coming to work every day and had great relationships and felt good about themselves and everything, there wouldn't really essentially
Right.
be a need for customer experience, because everything's getting done perfectly, and people feel they have that space, that grace to innovate, to look on that horizon line, not be like, they have this really toxic relationship maybe with their manager, and they're just kind of getting through the day, getting to the weekend, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you have great customer service and people love it, they're your first line of defense, first cheerleaders. That's going to be a great thing when you call into the customer service line and have a question.
Right.
You're not
Right.
going to get somebody crappy on the other end.
Yep. And when you look at some of the best relationships that companies have, when you look at what are you doing, how is that happening that they're the best relationship, they're your best customer, there's usually, almost always, I can't think of a time where it hasn't happened, when you break down the transactions happening there, there's unique things going on that makes that customer good. I mean, it's the communication. It's, I think we've referenced the love languages here. That
exactly.
applies to business.
Yep.
Figuring out how often do people need to communicate? What type of communication do they like? As far as recognition and some things like that, how do they like to be recognized? But knowing what those needs are, and then meeting those needs. And the same thing applies to employees.
Yeah.
Keeping that communication strong keeps the relationship healthy and vibrant.
Exactly. Another thing you had mentioned in there, another little buzzword I heard was transaction.
Yeah.
And about when we talk about relationships, especially when it comes to relationships with our customers, moving away from that transactional relationship and moving it into a very healthy, mutually beneficial relationship. I mean, that's one of the hearts of customer experience again, too, and the way of business. If you didn't cater and nurture to your demographic and your customer base and your core audience, if you're not on a daily basis thinking, what do they need? How can I make their lives better?
Yeah.
You're not going to have very good relationships. Then you're not going to have a lot of good
Right.
customers, and you're not going to have a lot of good sales, and those KPI and all those other things
Yep.
don't matter.
So we had an incident not that long ago with a client where we had a bunch of people in the room and somebody threw out the topic of buying cars. Remember this?
Yep.
And I think there were about 30 people in the room, and all of a sudden people are saying, well, the person that started off the conversation, and this is all having to do with a relationship.
Yeah.
The person said, who would ever want to go into a car dealer
And deal with those car
and deal with the car
salesmen,
salesman?
yeah.
And somebody else fired back immediately. They're like, well, I wouldn't. I'm going to buy my car, right offline. I don't have to see anybody. I don't have to talk to anybody. And this went on for 5, 10, 15 minutes.
At least, yeah.
And people were saying, well, here's what customers want. The fact of the matter is they were all right.
Yeah. Exactly.
There are different people that want different things in those relationships. And I think even when you and I hang out and we talk about stuff, you buy I don't even know if you ever go to the grocery store.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Buy it all online. Have it shipped to the house.
And so Allison and I, it's not a full blown date night, but that for our relationship, she's going to probably, elbow me for saying this. That is such quality. I mean, we walk down every aisle.
Yeah.
I've never walked down every aisle, but she's helped me understand the value. I mean, you have no idea what you're missing in your cupboard unless you walk down every single.
Exactly.
That would probably be fingernails on a chalkboard for you.
That would just be detrimental to the wallet for me. I can't go into grocery stores. I'd be just pulling stuff off shelves, and it'd be a tough relationship there.
Yeah.
No, I totally hear you.
And the whole point of this is that those were between the parties. You have to create what meets everybody's needs.
Yep.
The needs, because if you don't know what your individual needs are, okay, that's a problem because one way or another, our needs are going to get met.
Yep.
So if you've got an intimate relationship with a partner and the needs aren't getting met, if you're not connecting or, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, you're going to get that need met somewhere else,
Exactly.
which is detrimental to that relationship. Same with customers. Some
Exactly.
customers, they just want, it's just like, give me a good transaction, efficient, just get Amazon.
Yep.
Just give me what I want and get out of the way.
Yep.
Great. Well, that's a good, healthy relationship.
And then we're also going to have it the other way for the other people that want it that way too, because they know the needs and expectations of all the relationships that they have with their customers.
Yeah.
Because they're asking the questions, they're they're nurturing those relationships, they're in constant communication.
Right.
So,
So as we're wrapping this up, what are some thought-provoking questions you would ask them on part 2 as it relates to relationships?
Before I even say that, I feel like, because we're coming near the end here, if we're sticking to our, new timeline of, 15 to 18 minute podcasts here.
Thank you, Gary Griffin.
Right. Plug. Man, relationships might be a whole series in itself. I mean, I feel like we're just diving into a couple topics today. So who knows? Maybe part 3 comes before commitment again. Who knows? Maybe we make it its own series. Let us know in the comments below if you like it. Let us know, DM us, whatever, contact us. Let us know what you think about these relationship podcasts. But some questions, man, put me on the spot. I would first, again, like we just talked about, the first question I would say is go home tonight, or maybe you're already at home because you work remotely. Look yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And ask how the relationship is with each other. How's
doing?
that? Yeah. How you doing? Ask how friends plug.
Exactly.
How's that relationship going with yourself? How are you talking to yourself? Are you giving yourself that space and that grace? How's the relationship with your partner doing, your significant other? How is the relationships with your employees going or your coworkers? Is it just, I'm only going to talk to them when I have a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or send them an email? Exactly. Are you being clear with your communication, asking clarifying questions? Those would be the first three things I would do: yourself, your employees, and your leaders, and then making sure you have clarifying questions that you're asking to better your communication within those relationships.
Yep, absolutely.
What about you? What are some? questions you'd have.
Thanks for the opportunity to answer that. I would encourage everybody to consider what are and what have been your very best, healthy, vibrant, productive, passionate relationships that you've had in your entire life. Could be, okay?
That's a good one.
Just consider it. Just think about what they've been and experience how that feels. Just thinking about that, and then take the time to break down what was going on. What did they offer you that felt really good, and how were you different in that relationship, whenever it was at that time, that you could replicate in current relationships that may not be where you want them to be.
Yeah. How did it feel mentally? How did it feel physically? How did it feel spiritually? How did it feel for your overall day?
Well, and what were you doing? What was your mindset? What was the conversation that you had in your head like at that time about yourself, about them, and what you were going through? Because a lot of time, we all know this, controlling our thoughts controls our emotions. Controlling our emotions controls our behavior. Controlling our behavior dictates our results and quality of life. And so that whole mindset thing, well, that's going to make a great graphic.
It will.
I never thought of it that way.
Insert graphics.
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that look at the best relationships, figure out how you can replicate that stuff, and take some immediate change. Don't wait around to make those change on the really important relationships.
So you might get part 3 of the series. You might get episode 3 of relationships. You might get commitment next. Stay tuned. One teaser I'll leave with is about relationships and leadership. Leadership centers around relationships. Leadership is a huge part of business, and I think a topic a lot of people want to get better at, especially as they advance through their career. So that's kind of the last couple things that we'll leave you with, and hope to see you guys at the next one. Thanks again.
Thanks.